Welcome. I'm your host, Malcolm Gallagher. From our BizVision studios in the UK, you're watching the Sales and Marketing Today channel on the BVTV network. Now, on the studio wall in front of me, I'm proudly displaying my Chartered Institute of Marketing Fellowship plaque from 1983 and my current Chartered Marketer certificate. So I've been committed to marketing for years and witnessed the changes in it. And in the past, those changes may have been slow, but now they are fast accelerating, and nowhere more so than understanding what's going on in the customer's brain. Today, you, my viewers and listeners, and myself have a great opportunity to leap ahead in our marketing thinking and understand much clearer the world of neuromarketing. I'm taking you to meet the founder of Happy Buying Brain, Felix Cao. Welcome, Felix.
Hi, Malcolm. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I definitely appreciate it. This is exciting.
It's exciting to talk about neuromarketing, but just before we do that, let's just have a quick look at that picture behind you. It is Amsterdam, isn't it?
Yes, that is Amsterdam. So, it's one of the places that's very iconic. I think a lot of people, when they see it, recognize that it's a place that we would probably all want to be there right now. So, it's just a reminder that when we want to get kind of transport away from like the office space, the pleasures of Amsterdam is certainly one place that stands out in mind.
Well, my wife Kim has got a contentious belief that some people find it contentious that Amsterdam's the most romantic of all cities she's been to, and that's not because I bought her a diamond there, by the way, because I didn't, But she finds it just a romantic, relaxing place. So I'm sure that picture is something that. In those times when you might feel a little bit stressed out, it just takes you a little bit down. Does it softens it all for you?
Exactly. It does. It definitely has a calming effect as well. So maybe we add some images of a diamond in the background, then we could enhance that the feeling of calmness and kind of stability, right? So there's lots of meaning that comes out of Amsterdam, and it means several different things to different people. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people can relate to based on what people find very important in their lives.
Yeah. Okay. Felix educates businesses and marketers to deliver transforming strategies that speak to the primal parts of a customer's brain. Now, in this totally altered business world, keeping ahead of change, and in particular, what we may call buyer behavior, is so important. I'll be talking to Felix in three parts. First part, we'll discuss what is neuromarketing and why is it important. In part two, I'll talk to him about the application of neuromarketing, the where, the who, and the how. And in part three, we'll hear about how successful it can be and some thoughts on Felix and where it's going to. Felix, though, before we get into that three-part chat, can you please introduce yourself to my viewers and listeners? Who is Felix Cao and why Happy Buying Brain?
Yeah, absolutely. I think those are two very loaded questions. I think the best way is to see where Happy Buying Brain came from is really it started with the journey actually, and what it was I always had a strong fascination when it came to how the brain worked, how the mind worked, and the biology behind that. At first, initially, I had no inclination to get into business. It was actually geared towards getting into optometry. But ironically, that just like everything in life took a turn, met some people, got into the business world. And to make a long story short, the birth of Happy Buying Brain is really the culmination of, my fascination and educational background in the biological sciences and psychology, and combining that with 15 plus years of experience in the business world, and then of which a large portion of that was in technology. And then so what I really found is the timing for neuromarketing seems to be very, very prime and perfect right now, because with all the changes, people are looking, especially companies are looking for better ways to connect and understand their consumers much better, right? So it extends more than just the features and benefits now, but what are some of these other value systems that now companies have to be aware of, so that they're able to connect with their consumers on a much deeper level than just just explaining what their product could do for them on that surface level.
Yeah, gotcha. Felix, let's kick off our chat with part one about the concept of neuromarketing. So in layman's terms, please, that's mostly for me, by the way, rather than just viewers and listeners. In layman's terms, please explain it and why it's important in today's marketing world.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way to look at neuromarketing is really what you're doing is you're combining digital marketing with the neurosciences, right? So what it is really, you're applying neuroscience, which is really, you know, how the brain and the body responds to marketing stimuli, and you're applying that the discipline of neuroscience to you know, sales and marketing strategies to help companies solve their business challenges a lot more effectively. And really what that means is, you know, we help companies craft their marketing so that it, you know, speaks to the primal part of the consumer's brains. And that's so important because the primal brain actually, you know, operates below the level of consciousness, but influences up to 95% of you know, the buying decisions made by consumers. That you know, if it would totally make sense to concentrate on you know, that part of the brain where a lot of the drivers are coming to place that influence, you know, consumers' purchasing choices.
So is this in a way subliminal marketing?
Well, if you really look at what the different definition of subliminal marketing is, every form of marketing is a form of subconscious influencing. So, you know, like if you look at priming, for example, right, that's just being exposed to, you know, like a stimulus such as a word or an image that will later influence how someone responds to a similar identical stimulus in the future. So, you know, it's just a way to understand that how do you, you know, what's really going on this beyond on a subconscious level. But really, you know, so to gear the marketing so you could tap into a lot of those true desires, hopes and dreams, and help you know, your consumers be the best version of themselves.
Yeah. So are we using then, you know, obviously sight, sound, smells, colors, do all of those play their part?
Yeah, absolutely. Because to understand how that actually works together. So those are more to deal with the tangible side of the primal brain, right? Because that's how the primal brain, you know, understands the world. So, you know, one part of the brain is called the reptilian brain, which is also called the physical brain. And it's called the physical brain, obviously, because it wants to engage physically with whatever it is, like with our external world. So by using, you know, marketing material in the way that really appeals to, let's say, the five senses, is going to do one major thing is really help you know, the consumer with the memory recall for, let's say, for that particular brand, right? So now you become a lot more meticulous and granular in terms of identifying situations where you know, somebody should, or a company should be applying these let's say the five senses if they want to increase the memory recall for their brand.
Fascinating. And we'll discover a little bit more as we go through our interview. But before we move to part two, I'd just like to remind viewers and listeners of Felix's website address URL, which obviously viewers you can see on the screen behind me. But for listeners, let me spell that out. It's all the W's .happy buying brain, and buying is BUYING. So happybuyingbrain.com. Felix, in part two, I want to talk to you about the application of neuromarketing, the where, the whom, the how. I'll start off by asking you, is it applicable to all sectors, or just say B2 business to consumer and not B2B, business to business?
So what we do at Happy Buying Brain is actually we work with mainly businesses, but the businesses are B2B and B2C, because at the end of the day, whether it's another business owner or a consumer, the primal brain usually works very similar across. It's almost like a universal kind of blueprint or operating system that, you know, if you have a brain, for example, with the 8 billion people, there's a lot of commonalities that come into play. So, you know, the application of neuromarketing is certainly applicable in both a B2B situation and also in a B2C situation as well.
Right. Okay. So if I was a company coming to you, and I know you're going to give us some ideas later on. If I was a company coming to you, what would be the workflow process that you would take me through before I signed up to Happy Buying?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the main thing is usually everything starts off with more with a discovery call, right? So during that call, it's really to figure out what the goals of the company is, and also to dive into what their problems are, and then what's the root cause of those problems. Once we're able to do that, then what we do is we go through the steps of it could either go two ways. We work together and we fix a problem. How does your company look? Or if you don't work with us and the problem remains, then how is the company going to continue to suffer, right? So once we draw this roadmap of working with us and where we could take them from solving that challenges and then transferring the company to take them to the next level, what ends up happening is we come up with a strategic plan to help the company achieve those goals by drawing out that roadmap and implementing the neuromarketing strategies as part of the plan.
Yeah. So tell me then, obviously, as we were saying, the world has changed a lot, and we've got that many different genders these days. I've lost count of them, and obviously we've got cultural differences around the world. Is there some conformity to those? Does neuromarketing apply to all?
Yeah. So the way to really look at neuromarketing is there's more. It seems like there's more identity. Segmentation that happens, but at the end of the day, the way to really look at what a brand is a brand is a verb or an emotional state. So what's important for a company to keep in mind is how does their brand, when they come in contact with their consumers, really bring stability to a consumer, especially right now, where their emotions are at and their level of fear, for example, and anxiety are at a really super heightened and intense state, right? So how does a brand position themselves where now they bring stability to to help their consumers kind of come down a little bit and get more control of their life, right? So in terms of positioning the company that way, that makes a huge difference. And then also, how do they now look at instead of this, because there's so many different segments within, let's say in the case of gender, for example, or even with race, is now how do they make it a lot more inclusive by, instead of the neuromarketing, we call it the us versus them type of mentality or bias. Now how do we break away from that and try to include as many people as possible and be conscious about it, so that businesses could craft their marketing to make it as inclusive as possible. And one example is Unilever, which makes Dove. At first, they had a slogan that was normal beauty, but what does normal mean to people? It could be a wide range of definitions. So in order to really expand on their message of inclusiveness, they changed normal beauty to positive beauty, for example. So this being aware of how to expand and really to try to overlap and mitigate the chances of the whole us versus them effect is to use branding words that will try to include as many people as possible.
Yeah. Just my final sort of question here on this part here. There's a big movement at the moment within the consumer industry, especially as regards privacy. And many of them many people feel that companies have been intrusive, particularly in their usage of data. What would you say to the skeptics saying that what you're talking about, neuromarketing, is customer manipulation?
Right. So the way to look at it is neuromarketing is just a tool. Like any tool, it could be used for good, or it could be used for a detriment of whatever the situation is. So it's all how a company uses neuromarketing. So if their goal, for example, is to help their consumers achieve the best version of themselves and really solve pain points. Let's say one example is you have let's say someone in the healthcare field, like chiropractors, and they want to be able to reach out to more consumers. And then, we help them at Happy Buying Brain, for example, implement neuromarketing so that they're able to reach more people and have more people come in that actually need help with work on their back. then neuromarketing is something that becomes very, very powerful, right? And that's how I see neuromarketing being used. So, if it's used in the way that transforms the lives of people for the better and solves really true pain points, then that's a goal of neuromarketing. Of course, it's a complex issue because you have on one side, you have really the brands, and they're looking to provide the best products and services to their consumers, because if they don't, and one way to obviously do that is to implement neuromarketing, because that's how companies will understand and implement strategies so that they could speak to the primal part of the brain, because that's the influence up to 95% of the decision making for consumers when it comes to buying. If they choose not to use neuromarketing, then they would actually be doing their consumers a disservice by now creating products that may be inferior and may lead to, let's say, loss of freedom of choice, by not being able to understand their consumers on a much deeper level. And then, of course, you have consumers now that want the best products and service, right? And then obviously you look at the marketplace, and the marketplace, it's companies are looking for some sort of competitive advantage, and neuromarketing definitely helps companies stand out that way. So really, it's a matter of the primary challenge is how do you incorporate neuromarketing, or neuroscience within the boundaries of neuromarketing. And right now, it's a work in progress, because it's important right now to find common ground between those different variables that we mentioned of brands, consumers, and the marketplace, and then balancing that out with, let's say, transparency, ethics, and privacy, and also how do you protect vulnerable populations as well. So just circling back to the main point, it's just all a matter of how neuromarketing is used to, as long as it's used to make the lives of let's say the consumers of brands better, then neuromarketing is certainly very, very powerful.
Yeah. So putting the consumer first, or the business first, rather than the user of neuromarketing, is what you're saying, isn't it?
Exactly. It always has to come down to the consumers, right? Yeah. So so once we look at, okay, what's the pain points, like how could we solve it more effectively? Then neuromarketing is certainly a huge driver to help companies do that.
Excellent. Yeah. Thanks, Felix. Now for part 3, and time to do some convincing and crystal ball gazing. So this is a two-part question. First of all, can you give us some case study overview of how it works, such as for I believe, the food bike tour? And can you then gaze into Felix's crystal ball and tell us where you think neuromarketing is going and why marketers need to get on board now?
Sure. So let's dive into, let's talk about the food bike tour, right? So what they were looking to do is they had a certain ad budget that they want to work with, but they would really want to maximize the ROI. So we had to find ways to really upgrade and improve their marketing materials to lead to better conversions. And at the time, they had several main challenges. Number one was their ads were containing too many words. And number two, the pictures are really, really small. And number three is the types of images and videos that we're using. All three of those were not in line with actually how the primal brain processes information. For example, if we circle back to, just having too many words, the primal brain, or the brain in general, is very simple. It's what we call a cognitive miser. It's really lazy, right? And the primal brain, to really see it, it's a primitive filter, a gateway that allows information to eventually reach the cortex for a lot more advanced processing. So that's why it's responsible. It's such a huge driver of decision making, because it really starts to filter out information that it thinks that is not useful for the survival and reproductive success of the individual. So the one way to do it is is to make things as energy efficient as possible. So really, how does the brain, and we call it processing fluency, how is the primal brain just able to look at it and then just understand it right away, so it doesn't consume all this caloric energy to try to make sense out of it. So several things that someone could do, for example, if spotting, once we're able to identify that if there's too many words, is how do you make it a lot more condensed? And obviously you can use like bullet points, or you can use images, if possible in that circumstance, to replace, let's say, some of the wording, for example, right? So that's some of the ways that we were able to work around it. In terms of the visual, one of the, I call it the 7 primal brain-friendly messaging components that the primal brain is really receptive to is anything that is novel and visual. So obviously, having a bunch of small pictures really makes it difficult for the brain to reprocess and pick up why, what's the most important thing. So we really make things simple, and to make things novel is to really expand on a picture, and then it becomes featured.
Yeah.
So you got the visual part, now you got the novel part. So that's one way that we start to remove a lot of the clutter. And then the types of pictures at first were, you had some food stuff and then some bikes, right? But there was nothing that really captured the experience of a food bike tour, which was really meant and to really explore the city, but more so to actually build friendships and connections along the way. So we made the switch where, it showed more of a journey from when, you met up, start to connect and have conversations with everybody that is part of that tour for that day, let's say, that they're promoting. And then let's say imagery where it was started off that people meet, and then now they're on the bike ride, and now they're actually holding up, let's say, a glass and toasting while they're at the restaurant. So it's that progression of not only enjoying the food, but also the human camaraderie that comes out of that, right? So other things that work as well as adding pictures of that displays social proof as well. Like 5-star rating, for example, that makes a big difference. Maybe testimonials, also influencers in the marketing material. So those are all ways that we're able to keep the marketing budget the same, but yet increase the month over month growth by over 25%, right?
Brilliant. Yeah.
So it had a huge impact, and that's because it was understanding how does the primal brain process information. Otherwise, without that knowledge, there's really no strategic way that that those changes could have been made, so that the consumers would really engage with the primal brains of their customers.
Yeah, brilliant. Absolutely brilliantly and exciting. So let's go to the crystal ball part of the question. And where's it all going to, and why should marketers get on board now?
Oh, right now it's going to continue to grow. One reason is, as I mentioned, I come from the technology world. So we see things every day. For example, artificial intelligence, machine learning, virtual reality, that's becoming much more part of our lives. Chatbots. We look around and we could talk into our phones or we could talk into our devices, for example, and make voice commands, and Siri will answer and pull up any information. Amazon has Alexa, for example, and you can now control anything in your household. And what I see moving forward is a lot of those the core of those innovations are actually based on neuroscience. So as all this technology, for example, that's based on neuroscience becomes much more a part of our daily lives. Generally, when something becomes mainstream, what happens is all the concept of neuroscience also becomes a lot more popularized and familiarized, where it starts to penetrate into other industries. And we've seen that with everything, right? At first, it's like the internet, it started off more for leisure, and all of a sudden it became more like a utility people are using for work and everything. I like mobile was the same way. It at first it was just used for, like, say, playing games and things, and now we can't live without it in the business world, right? And you can access your phone, for example, to really look at the cameras, for example, if you have one set up in your house, and to talk to somebody at the door, for example. So I see the same thing happening when it comes to with neuromarketing, where the neuroscience is now is currently penetrating the world of business, to allow companies to understand their consumers much better, to be able to develop much more robust customer avatars, and then coming up with the best marketing strategies based on neuroscience to deliver the best experience to their consumers. So this is really just the starting point for the growth of neuromarketing. And it's right now, as I mentioned, it's very timely. People are looking for better ways to connect with their consumers.
I wanted to squeeze one last little question in, if I can,
Sure.
Felix. It's bouncing out, because this week we've seen the major report on IPCC regarding climate change, and all of us, every single business in the world, and all of us in consumer, have a responsibility to our planet.
Right.
How do you think that neuromarketing can help? Because there's some people that it just washes over. They do not, they don't understand the importance of it all. So show me how neuromarketing could help in this instance. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things is we're always looking to build a strong community. So one of the needs, obviously, on a primal survival level, is to be part of a community where we could thrive, right? So that's a whole premise behind tribes, for example, right? Or networking communities, or being part of a specific group, because we always have it on an evolutionary terms is the safety in numbers, right? So that's the main thing. Companies that are able to craft and deliver that type of message, where we're all in this together, very similar to when what had happened over the last 18 months when the entire world changed due to COVID. The message was, even though we're apart, we're not alone. And here's the same thing. We have to come together in that respect, so that Earth, now everybody on the planet, really belongs to the same tribe. And if there could be some significant consequences if there's still a lot of disparity in terms of whether something should be done or not, right? So it's really tapping into our need to thrive together in order for us to really solve this problem.
I'm sure there should be lots of people beating a path to your door to help us achieve that. If you want your business and your products or services to be relevant to customers and for them to buy, then I trust what you've learned today about neuromarketing will now be on the top of your action list to learn more and how it can work for you. Many thanks for a great, insightful interview to the founder of Happy Buying Brain. Thanks, Felix Cao.
Thank you, Malcolm. This was awesome.
Wonderful conversation. Thank you.
I loved it. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Well done. That was nice.
Excellent.
That flowed nicely, didn't it?